Hi folks, and welcome back to Fishing with Dan. Well, weather outside's pretty horrible today, so I'm not going fishing, and that seemed to me to be the perfect opportunity to start the series on how to make fishing tackle with a 3D printer. And you can see I've got the 3D printer going at the moment, and it's making one of these. This is a Groundbait Punch, and if you don't know what a Groundbait Punch is, I suppose I better explain that now for you. So first of all then, let me just show you how this thing works. Made up a bowl of ground bait, and what we're going to do, I'm doing this right-handed even though I'm left-handed, so if I can do it this way, you can do it this way. Just put it in like that, tamp it down, and then just push it out, and you've got a perfectly formed cube, I suppose, of ground bait. Now, depending on how hard you press against it, just like when you're making a ball up in your hands, will determine how soon it breaks up on the bottom, or indeed on the way down. So you're probably going to say to yourself, well, why do I need one of those when I can just make one up myself in the usual way? And there we go, I've got a ball sorted out there, and it's more or less the same sort of size. Well, the first reason is, if you're fishing, I'm left-handed, so I've usually got my hand on the rod or the pole, and I use my right hand to make up bait. And trying to make up a ball of ground bait of the right size and so on is doable, but it's just easier to just shove it in here, tamp it down and push it out. The other thing is, this gives you the same size ball and the same shape ball every time. So, you can throw it out underarm, you could throw it out overarm if you wanted to, depending on the size. You could put it into a catapult, or use a throwing stick, or however you decide to get your bait out there to where you're fishing. And this is just a really easy, convenient way to do that. Now I've made them in all sorts of different sizes. I've got 20mm, 25mm, 30mm, and I've actually made one which is 40mm, and of course, I'll put that down there. Filling this one up takes a bit of doing it. You need to use 2 fingers. Something like this, I tend not to worry about that too much for just throwing in by hand. I've been experimenting with things called throwing sticks, like this one. So, as you can see, that's quite a big size of throwing stick. And so you'd need a decent sized ball of ground bait to go in there. The thing with throwing sticks I found is, if you get them all of the ground bait balls all of an odd shape and put them in, they don't necessarily fly the way you want them to. But if you've got that standard shape every time, you know how much pressure to put behind it, and it's the same for a catapult, I suppose. If you wanted to put these into a great big ground bait pult, you could do that too. So that's the basic idea of why you need these things. So I think now, let's actually get into the process of showing you how they work on the 3D printer. So the one you see being printed here now is, I think, the 25mm version. It's not got all that high yet, it's probably only about 2 centimeters up, and the printer's building it up from this base plate here upwards in 2 pieces. Basically, those are the 2 pieces it's printing, and so eventually it will look like that and that on the printer. So how do we get to this stage? Because of course they don't just miraculously turn up on the printer and start printing themselves. You have to go through a process. So I'll nip over to the computer now and we'll show you how I go about designing and publishing one of these things. So all you have to do is download it from the internet, put it on an SD card, put it in the printer, and lo and behold, you'll end up with the product you wanted. So here I am on my chosen CAD Design program. This one's called CAD. I did mention on the last video on the 3D printer that this was actually designed for children because it's based on shapes rather than the complicated CAD programs that professionals use. And to give you an idea, all I'm doing to make this object here is to take a cylinder, make it to whatever size I decide I need it to be, bring the height up, take another cylinder, rotate it by 90 degrees, and then lift that up and move it across into the object here. And in essence, that's how simple the whole thing is. So what I'll do first of all then is I'll just delete all of these, because those are just there to show you. And if we take this object here, what I can do is ungroup it. In other words, show you the component parts. And here it is. Very simple and straightforward. I've got some of them here as normal coloured parts and some as see-through parts, so I can see what's going on the inside. If I just undo those changes, you can see how simple this project actually is. So what we've got here then is the parts for the 25mm groundbait punch, and we now have to export that into another program. And so what I'll do is I'll select those two, go to export, and as a .stl file. And this is how you get the bit that you need to be able to print it on your printer. And this is where you find the file you need. The site is MakerBot Thingiverse, or thingiverse.com. If you go into thingiverse.com and type in this number, which you can see here, that will bring you to the relevant project. I'll click on that, which brings us to the location where we can download the files. As you know, there are 4 files in this project for the different sizes, and if you wanted to, you could just download all files by clicking this link, and that would take it down onto your computer. If you don't want all of the files, there are 4 thing files, as it says, Thingiverse, thing files. Click on that, and now you can just select 1, 2, 3, or 4, depending on what you need here. And as I said before, that will just be downloaded onto your computer. And that's the hard part pretty much done then, folks. It's on your computer now, so you can run it through your slicer, whether you use Cura or Prusa or any other kind of slicer. All the details you need I've actually put down in the Thingiverse text box, so you can get the relevant information from there. And then once you've done that, print it so it comes out as G-code, put the SD card into your printer, and you end up with what you see here as your final product. Assembly wise, it's actually very simple. You've got your 2 parts which came off the printer, and you will need to just use a piece of sandpaper just to get rid of any hard edges or burrs. Here's one which just came off, and I'll just run the sandpaper along the edge until I get to a point where it's nice and smooth, like this one. There may also be a few hairs, or what looks like hairs from the printing process in there, and all I do for that is just take a round file and just gently give it a bit of a run through. Once everything's clear in there, all you have to do is take your 2 pieces and fit them together. That slot needs to line up with the hole going through there, like that. And then what we're going to do is to take a piece of this aluminium. This is just solid bar aluminium. It says 6mm, but it's actually 6.3mm, and I just bought this from the local DIY store. So what we're going to do, I'll take that out. I'm going to put this through the first hole and just make it get to the edge there, so it doesn't go through the main hole. And then take this one and just align it so that I can push through and down like that, and that's all there is to it. It really is as simple as that, guys. I did actually think of having a spring-loaded effect so that came up there, and I did buy some springs, but I didn't need them. The action of just pushing the ground bait in pushes this backwards, and it just works very well. Adding a spring is an unnecessary complication which I didn't need. And just before we finish, I suppose I should answer the obvious question of why would you want to print 3D printed fishing tackle when you can go out and buy exactly the same things in the tackle shops? Well, good question. I did actually look up online, and there are some bait punches on there. They cost £3.49 each. For the sake of rounding it up, let's call it £3.50. There's only 2 or possibly 3 sizes. We've got 4 different sizes here, but you can have as many as you want. But if we assume £3.50 on 4 different sizes, that's £14. And the whole lot of mine probably cost me, I don't know, I'd be guessing, but let's call it £1. So I've just saved myself £13. Not only that, I've actually given myself exactly what I want in the sizes I want it. And not only that, I've actually got the satisfaction of knowing I built it myself. So that's it for another one then, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, click the button. If you want to subscribe, you can do that too. And until the next time, bye for now.